Hey friend, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today we're going to talk about how to take sample libraries that are either free or kind of budget on the more budget side of things and get really big sound from them, or to use the instruments there as effectively as possible to tell a story so that your listener doesn't really know that you're using budget sample libraries, or maybe sample libraries that you didn't spend a ton of money on, or maybe your computer is not the most powerful computer that you could possibly have, but you don't want your listeners to know that. You just want to tell an effective story using the instruments, using the materials that you have at your disposal. So so again, my name is Chris. On this channel, we do music tech, music engraving, music composition stuff. And a lot of my music is, even though I'm not really a songwriter myself, a lot of my music is kind of more melodically driven, sing-songy. Like I do a lot of work at the piano, and I do have a document that I'd like to give you if you'd like it. It's called Elements of Music for Songwriters. I did a course years ago called Composition for Songwriters, and in that course I included this PDF that was sort of like a preparatory course to get you ready to take a composition class if you were a songwriter. A lot of songwriters maybe don't, and this is not everybody, for sure. If you know a lot about music, you may know everything in this PDF, and that's totally fine. But if you're the kind of songwriter who's just kind of always played, like simple songs on your guitar or the piano, but you've not really known how chords are built or how, what some of these terms mean, this Essentials of Music PDF should help you, should at least get you started and give you a foundation. And one of the other reasons I encourage you to download that is because I need to know if we need to keep making content like that. If you all want more composition or elements of music or music theory kind of videos, I'm happy to provide those. But all of my videos, most videos that I put out, are very much driven by creativity. So we're always going to play some music, talk about it. I might play a little bit on my keyboard. I've got my keyboards out here. We'll kind of talk about what I'm doing here in just a second. But I want to start this video by playing a track for you that I wrote a couple years ago for the Vienna Symphonic Library competition that they did in collaboration with Second Foundation Music. This track was a round one pick. It made it past the first round, so I was able to go to the second round. I didn't make it past the second round, and that's totally okay. It was just a really fun project. So the assignment was to write a 30-second track using some of the Vienna Symphonic Library free instruments. And it had to be exactly 30 seconds, and we could only use the instruments on that list. And by the way, I'll put a link to those instruments in the description below, so you can go download these and play around with them if you want. But first, I'm going to play the track, and then we're going to talk about it. And then later in the video, we are actually going to look at some instruments, some of which are not exactly free, but they're kind of more on the budget side of things. So I'd love to give you some strategies if you are on a tight budget, or let's say you've got a computer that's not the fastest, most powerful computer that you could have. I'd love to give you some ideas as to how you could write music that is convincing using limited means. And so we'll get into that in just a little bit. Let me just play this track for you, and then we're going to talk about it, okay? Sorry, the loop points are set so that it starts over again. Okay, so that is, again, 30 seconds exactly, and then it fades out and then it's over. And so this is a really interesting challenge. And actually, if you ever have a chance to write a little bit of music each week, maybe using a single adjective, a word, maybe writing a simple piece at the piano, a simple guitar riff or something like that based on an emotion or some sort of adjective that you think up, maybe get ChatGPT to do that. It can be a really interesting exercise to just write something based on an emotion. And so, as you can tell, this piece is very emotive. It's very melodically driven. It's very piano heavy, which tends to be how a lot of my music is, because I'm a pianist and I like to write stuff at the piano. And so let's just talk about this really quick. This uses, again, mostly piano. The Vienna Symphonic Library has this thing called a soft imperial. This is a free instrument, and it is a kind of a smaller version of, I think, a Bösendorfer imperial that they have that they sell as well. And by the way, just a really quick plug, Vienna Symphonic Library's pianos are some of the best I've ever played in my life. They're just unbelievable. I have the Yamaha CFX full library, which is the big Yamaha 9-foot grand piano library that they put out. I actually used some of the money that I got from the round one competition to purchase that library because it's just so deep and so beautiful. Maybe one day I'll make a video about that. But the soft imperial is gorgeous, right? And it's made for like really soft sounding piano music, right? And the reason I chose soft imperial for the melody is because of all of the instruments that they had as options for like in the free tier of options on their website. The soft imperial was the only one that I felt like I could write like a really convincing melody on. And you'll notice that it just goes right into the melody. Like instantly you start listening and you're kind of pulled into it. So if you ever have to write something like this, that there's a pitch that you have to make and it's really, really a really short track, you have to make your point right away. You have to have something that pulls people in immediately. That's really your only option. And so in this case, I remember, I don't think I have the earlier tracks that I wrote as I was getting this thing ready to ship. But as I recall, there was a lot of fluff. It took me a while to work out the melody and everything and make sure that it was only 30 seconds. I think I may have, tapped in a faster meter, a faster tempo, because I wanted to make sure it fit within the 30 seconds. But I also wanted to make sure that I went right into the melody that would pull people in. And so that's why you have this, let's see if I can actually remember what it is, right? Right, so it's very like, and then, so it's I think in this track here, there's like some sort of like bell-like piano music going on in the top to kind of keep the rhythm moving forward. But right away, and then several bars in, there's these kind of 10th chords in the left hand. So that just gets going, and then it builds with these orchestra hits down here. So let me see if I can remember my Cubase shortcuts here. Let me just start from right here, and we'll mute, pardon me, solo. So as you can tell, I personally don't love samples like that where you have like an entire orchestra. But again, that's all we had. That was the only way I could build this track from simple from the simple means that I had at my disposal. Now these string runs are super fun. Now these are just pre-recorded. So right when the MIDI starts, it just triggers right? And then there's another one. An octave down. And then there's one that reverses. And I think what I did there is I selected a key switch that changed the direction of the strings from going up to going down, just to kind of bring the track to an end. If you want to hear the whole thing, let me just unsolo. And then here's the down an octave, and then it goes down. Right? Okay, so y'all get the idea. Like, this is a really simple track, but the really important components here are that the melody starts right away and pulls you in immediately. That is how the thing gets started. You don't have time in a 30-second track to have a lot of intro material, and you have to just jump right into it, right? It's like when you're writing copy for a sales letter. I've never done this before, but like, you know, I've read books about this. It's very strange. It's like a weird side hobby of mine. But if you want to get somebody to read your copy, you have to have an opening line that just pulls them in right away. And so with music, when you're telling a story with music, it's the very same thing. There's got to be some statement at the beginning that kind of stops people in their tracks and gets them to listen. And so that's why this particular track, I think, works, and why it got past the first round, because it launched right into something that sounded interesting and kind of pulled people into a story right away. And I mean, there is a little bit of intro material. It doesn't go, you know, from 0 to 11 immediately. It's the melody is introduced, right? But it starts right away. There's no like, let's see, like, I don't know what I would do, but I can't remember even what I did at the beginning, but there was all this like fluff at the beginning, and it did not actually draw people in as you know, as you need to. Okay. So let's transition away from this track briefly. I'm going to open a couple of other tracks that I have hidden here. While we're in Cubase. I'm going to jump over to Reaper later in the video because for some reason Cubase and the Synchron player are not playing well together. I don't know what's going on. Obviously these tracks are working, but whenever I try to open these other tracks I want to talk about, it doesn't work. Something happens. So this is actually Cubase 13. I don't have the newest Cubase 14. Anyway, whatever. I don't know what the reason is why it's not working, but Iconica Sketch Violins is the first track I've selected here. I want to talk about Iconica Sketch because if you buy Cubase Pro, and this may be true of some of the lower tiers of Cubase, but don't quote me on that. But certainly Cubase Pro and Dorico Pro both come with this Iconica Sketch library, which is this kind of a stripped down version of their Iconica series, which is a Steinberg product. And Iconica is one of these big sample libraries that's pretty expensive, but I think you can buy it for like as a standalone for Halion, which is the kind of the instrument plugin for Steinberg, right? So like this is kind of their equivalent of Contact, for example. And I pulled this up because I just wanted y'all to know that this has some true legato samples in it. So if I play a little bit of this, I've got my Alesis Q25 down here because it actually has the mod wheel, which is what I need to kind of change the dynamic of the strings that I'm playing. So like, for example, you hear how it's going up and down depending on how the mod wheel goes. So you can be much more expressive if you have the mod wheel, because most sample libraries use the mod wheel to kind of like change the dynamic of the pitches and kind of swell them in and out. But the reason this is really important is because a lot of these budget libraries, I know that Orchestral Tools has one now that's free. Spitfire has the BPCSO Discover or a library, and now Cubase comes with this one. You can buy this one for $100, but Cubase and Dorico come with this particular library, and it does have a legato patch in the strings. I think some of the other instruments also have legato patches, and it used to be you couldn't get a free library with legato patches. It was pretty rare. In fact, I've got a track that I may play later in this video that I wrote for a documentary back when I first started using Cubase. I had Contact 4 or 5 at the time, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I thought this was like the greatest thing ever. And it is. The samples in Contact are amazing. But at the time, I had no legato patches in any of those libraries that came stock with Contact. But I still figured out a way to fake it a little bit. And so later in this video, I may show y'all that track because that has no legato patches at all. But it does use the instruments in both an idiomatic way for the instrument. In other words, the music is written as though you're writing for a real person who is going to play that music, and it sounds like music that was written for that instrument because it is. And the other thing is that particular example and the one that I just played for you, they also play to the strengths of the sample library. So not only do you have writing that sounds like something that should be played at the piano, or writing that sounds like something that could be played by a real violin, you're also only using the samples that you have in a way that's convincing, using the samples. You're not trying to, in other words, if let's say I didn't have a legato patch here, if I were trying to write legato music with just the sustain, it wouldn't sound right, because the transitions between the notes have not been recorded in a sustain patch as they have for legato patches. So like, for example, listen to this. It's really subtle, but there's no transition between the pitches. It's just the pitch starts and then the next pitch starts. And I can play with the mod wheel and sort of fake it. But the real beauty of those notes comes when you simply play them and they sustain. It's not the transitions between the pitches are not, you're not hearing those as you are with the legato. Let me just try to play two examples, okay? So let me just play a simple motive, right? Now legato. You can hear this slight change between the pitches. It sounds like the violinist is changing fingers, right? When you play the legato pitch versus the sustain. And so that's what I'm talking about. When you only have sustain pitches, you need to really try not to write legato passages for sustain samples, because like they're not going to sound quite right. It's going to sound like you faked it. But if you do have a legato instrument somewhere in your arsenal and you can play these sustain pitches, right? So let's do this. So let's see, I'm playing non-violin music here. Let me just see if I can. That's not really a great example. But what I tried to do is hit the sustain chord, hold down my pedal, my like sustain pedal under the keyboard here, and then switch to legato to see if I could play a legato melody above that. And that's what I'm going to show you when I switch over to Reaper and open up these other patches, because what I want to start doing here is showing you how you can take these libraries that have, again, just like they have simple articulations. That's what these are called, by the way. When you're playing different, articulation is just how you play the note. And so when you have only a very simple, a small number of articulations, you really need to play into those articulations strengths that they have inherently. So if you only have sustained passages, or if you only have sustained articulations, just play sustained notes. Don't try to play legato. That's my point. Okay, let's hop over to Reaper, and I'm going to show you some other stuff. All right, here we are in Reaper. I just want to show y'all what I have set up here. Now, I realized that after I left Cubase, I forgot to show y'all that track that had Verve on it, Verve. Verve is, so I opened it up here in Reaper. Verve is another free plugin that comes with Cubase Pro, and it's a Hallian Sonic plugin. So again, Hallian Sonic is the kind of contact equivalent over at Steinberg. So it's a really great sample library platform, and there are other developers who make sample libraries for Hallian Sonic. But Verve is made by Steinberg, and it's sampled off of, I think, a felt piano that Yamaha made and sampled for this instrument. And so it's a really interesting sound, and you have the piano, which you have all these textures here, settings you can play with. Then texture, which if you turn it on, you can have like, other textures on top of the piano, or you can turn it off, doesn't matter. And then effects, you can have, right now there's just a reverb on there. So I figured I'd just play this for you a little bit, just so that you know that like this kind of plugin exists in Cubase for free. Now, again, I have it opened in Reaper here. I'm sorry about that. I know that that's kind of sacrilegious for those of you who are Steinberg people, but it doesn't matter. The point is that it's a VST3 plugin. It opens up in any other DAW as long as you have it. So if you want to spend, I think it's like $130 if you're in the US. But if you go to Steinberg's website, I'll post another link to this in the description. You can just download this as a plugin. So as long as you have Halley and Sonic, you can open Verve if you pay for it separately. But it's an amazing, let's see, I'm going to make sure this is actually active. Let's turn this on. There it is. So it is just a really nice sounding. I could play that melody that I had earlier in the other piece, right? So like. So it's a really nice, really soft piano that you could use for really great, emotive kind of writing. It has a really nice ring to it. It's soft. It's really, really good. So I realized I forgot to show you all that. It's here. You should check it out. Again, there will be a link in the description below. I don't get any money from these people. I'm just showing you because I happen to have access to them, and I think that they're really great. Okay, now, Verve. Let me turn Verve off for a second. Let's switch up here to, I want to go to Synchron Strings. Now, Synchron Strings is a fully paid, expensive plugin from Synchron, from Vienna Symphonic Library. But I have here, excuse me, I turned it off, didn't I? I have here what's called Epic Orchestra 2.0. So I purchased Vienna Ensemble Pro 7 a couple years ago. And in Vienna Ensemble Pro, you get this Epic Orchestra 2.0, which is kind of like a mishmash of different samples from different libraries. Some of them are a little bit older from Vienna Symphonic Library. And this particular plugin, this particular stripped down version of the Synchron Strings is not going to have things like legato, for example, but it does have these really nice. Let me make sure this is actually on. Yeah, there we go. It has these really nice, again, kind of like the Iconica sketch. There are some really great sustained patches in here. So, like, listen to this. Let me play it at the lower. I'm going to turn the attack up. Even better. I turned down the velocity. This would normally be tied to the mod wheel, but I don't have it assigned to the little keyboard right now. But it's really nice if you turn the attack up so that it takes longer to swell in. And then you have the velocity turned way down, so it takes a second to come in. Or sorry, it's played at a softer dynamic. And then flautando. Oh, that is such a cool sound. Hear that high pitch that comes in? So nice. Okay, so here's what I'm building up to. In this library, there are very few legato patches. A lot of what you have are these kind of, I think the Appassionata Strings has a legato patch in there. Let's see. Yeah, legato string vibrato. Now these are, going to be a bit more. So it's not, it's a little bit too, let me turn the attack up a little bit. So you have, like, there is a little legato in there, and that's fine. Let me go back to Synchron strings really fast, and let's turn on flautando. All right, we're going to leave it there for a second. I'm going to turn the attack up and bring the dynamic down a bit. Okay, here's what I'm building up to. In this library, there is also an oboe d'amore, which has a gorgeous legato. Look at this. It's in the same library, Epic Orchestra 2.0. It has a legato. Listen to this. I'm going to go over to the little keyboard. Wait, we got to turn it on. There we go. So do you hear they recorded the transitions between notes? I believe this is an older library that they put, again, a kind of a stripped down version in Epic Orchestra 2.0. But here's my point. When you have a library like this, where you have very simple articulations, you can use a kind of composer sleight of hand here. You know, you use the patches, you use the samples that do what you write idiomatically for the samples and also for the library. So in this case, if I'm playing Synchron strings, I can add in the oboe. Anyway, you get the idea. That's pretty bad improvisation, but you get the idea, right? You use the samples to their strengths, play them to their strengths. So use the Synchron strings as sort of a pad, and then have that oboe d'amore play above it to give it that sound of that depth of sound that it needs to have to sound convincing, right? So you're writing to the strengths of the library and also idiomatically for the instrument. Okay, so that's Epic Orchestra 2.0, which is not free. I believe it's like $100, €100 on the VSL website. But if you buy Vienna Ensemble Pro 7, which is the current one as of this video, you get this for free. So again, not super deep library, but it's like 80 gigabytes of samples. So there's surely some stuff in there that you can use. I think the cornet also has legato. Yeah, check it out. There it is. Let's see if we can play a little bit of this. Yeah, it sounds great. You know, so like there, you could use that. You could play, again, a string bed, and then you could have the cornet play some sort of, patriotic sound. I don't know, whatever. Like if you're going for sort of a patriotic vibe, you could use the cornet. If you're going for something a bit more rustic, the oboe d'amore is a great option because it kind of sounds a bit earthy, like it's an older kind of sound. Again, more rustic. That's the word that I use. I think that's pretty accurate. Okay. So we've talked about free. We've talked about, like $100 libraries. And now I want to show you something else that you can do. Again, this is not going to take a ton of processing power. And I want to back up again really quick here and say, we talked about budgets, but also there is the budget issue of your computer. Do you have a really powerful computer? Because a lot of these sample libraries coming out these days, if you want to buy all of them, which I know we all want to have as many sample libraries as possible, you have to spend not only the money on the library, but you have to spend money on a really powerful computer that can run all of them. And maybe you have, Vienna Ensemble Pro and it has all of your instruments loaded and you're switching between projects. Frankly, that whole setup, that world kind of turned me off of sample-based composition. Not forever, but it feels so overwhelming to me. because I have a really old computer. This computer is about 7 or 8 years old. It's a Mac Mini from 2018, and it has 6 cores, and I think I put 32 gigs of RAM into it myself. It's an old Intel Mac Mini. So I don't have the budget to both go out and buy all these sample libraries and also have a really powerful computer to run all of them. But I'm able to run all of the ones that I've been showing you pretty well. Like I can load a pretty large project into Cubase or Reaper and run it just fine. Because what I'm using is really stripped down libraries, and I'm using them to their strengths. And you know, that documentary track that I wrote, I mentioned I wrote for a documentary about 10 years ago. That track was on an even older, I think it was a MacBook Pro, 2012 MacBook Pro, that really didn't have a lot of juice in it. It was pretty slow, but I was able to run these Cubase, I think it was Cubase 5 or 6.5 is where I wrote that documentary. I was able to run all those tracks in Contact and have the video window open for the documentary, and it was pretty cool. So now I want to move into slightly more like paid territory. I've only got one more sample library to show you, but I want to show you this new one that I just purchased that I think sounds really good if you're looking for, you know, minimal space. Like it takes up minimal space on your computer, and you can use it with smaller sort of chamber sounding music and get a really big kind of sound. Let me show you what I mean. So here's this library. It's called Iconic Violin from Streamtech Music. This is just a solo violin. That's all it is. Now it has a ton of articulations. It is a really deeply sampled, beautiful instrument. And it has a really beautiful sound, particularly if you're going to use it with a string bed. So let's say you're going to use Synchron strings here, and you want to have like a bed to play underneath it. I'm going to see if I can get these two going. So let's activate both of them. So I'll play a string bed on the big keyboard, and then I'm going to try to improvise a little melody on Iconic Violin on the little keyboard. So let's see how this goes. All right, so let's do a different key, right? Let's go to D major. Anyway, you get the idea. So you have, again, a really nice string bed that sounds very real, very professional with the Synchron strings, but your listeners don't know that you don't have legato for the big string section. All they hear is this really nice string chord. And then your Iconic Violin, your more deeply sampled solo violin with these great kind of legato. I love this library because the developer recorded the dirt between the notes. I don't love libraries that are so perfect that you can't really hear the transitions. You can't hear that. There's something about it. I don't know what it is, but the Iconic Violin is great for kind of telling a story really effectively and making it sound real, if you know what I mean. You heard it. It's really deep. It's really beautiful. So there's all these different samples in here. Staccato. Pizzicato. And then there is what is it again? I know there's a Bartok Pizz in here. I can't find it. I think it's like, is it, There it is. I was going to say it's velocity sensitive. If you hit it really hard, it's going to turn into a Bartok pits, which is where they actually pull the string so hard that it slaps back against the fingerboard. So this library, I think, cost about $119 or 119 euros on their website. I'll put a link to this in the description below as well. But I just got it on sale for like $69 maybe. And so again, this is like a super budget solution, right? If you have to write something that is beautiful, but you don't have a really fast computer with tons of space, and but you still want to tell a beautiful story with your music, this is a great option because you can use budget libraries that have really good sounds if you're not trying to use them in the wrong way. And then you can take a library like this that you only spent like maybe $100 on to kind of be the storyteller that tells the main, this like the main character, if you will. So anyway, this has been kind of a long video, kind of a lot of improvisation, a lot of me rambling about this. But the point is that you can take these budget libraries that that are either free or don't cost a lot of money, and you can have a really, what many people would call an underpowered computer and still run all of these libraries to tell an effective musical story. So whether you're a songwriter, composer, whatever, you can actually get away with a lot these days. And now a lot of entry-level computers, if you're on a Mac like I am, a lot of those entry-level Macs, they're all silicon processors. So you're going to get a really fast machine, even if you don't have a ton of RAM. Those new silicon processors are really, really good, and they run a lot of tracks without really, frying your computer too much. So anyway, if you liked this video, if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will be putting out more videos kind of like this. This is just one that I thought would be really interesting. And then if you're a songwriter, or if you're somebody who maybe doesn't know a lot about music theory and you want to jump in and learn, there is that free PDF in the description below. You can jump in, download that, and look at some of that content. I will probably be putting out another video on that PDF in the near future. So I hope that y'all will come back and watch that, and I'll catch you again in the next one.